So first, let's just say this, and I'm going to keep doing this. So if it drives you crazy, I apologize, but I like to look at you when I talk to
Okay.
you. Um, the reason this was made. I just want to be clear on the intention of this. This isn't like it's not supposed to replace a behavior intervention plan. It's not like, oh, do it this way instead of the one in the IEP, any of that stuff. This is to address the needs of classroom teachers when um, I so often show up and it's like, what have you tried? Well, I've tried X, Y, and Z, and I've done this and that and the other thing. And I'm like, okay, well, did you put anything in writing? And what you tried, did you try it? Like for me, when I hear people talk about what they tried, my ears hear, okay, but you missed this and this, right? So what I'm trying to do is give like a gen ed classroom teacher or anybody who has any level of classroom stuff going on, just a simple place to start so that you
Mhm.
can get something going that makes sense, that covers a lot of bases, and that what it does is it sets you up correctly for the future. So I'd say the majority of behaviors can be addressed this way and will get a lot better. Um,
Mhm.
and at the very least, if you apply this and it gets only a little better, but you need it to go more, or you're like, wow, this isn't working, when you call in for other people's help, this sets you up in a great space to move from because it's got a baseline of information that will be very valuable to people who come in and support if you do it this way. So that's kind of why I set it up this way because I understand like especially if I think of like maybe a second year or a third year teacher who has very little understanding of behavior and suddenly gets two or three kids and they're really struggling and they're like, where do I even start? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I wanted that to be the case, but I also do this for, people that are really seasoned and they just have a couple of hard kids that came in and it's like, just do this first. It'll give you a leg up. Even if you're going to go from here on your own and write your own plans and write your own interventions, it's a great starting point. So I just kind of wanted to say that so it
Cool.
has a placeholder. Um, so let's just start at the beginning. Um, so I just called it a 5 point protocol. This literally came out of um, a consultation that I was doing with a teacher. And as I looked at it, I'm like, oh, there's just 5 things here. I should probably tell more people about this. So that's why it's called this. There's no fancy reason for the name except for that there's five
Cool.
things to think about. So here's the deal. I like to think about it as what kind of clarity are you offering? So what are the expectations? We have kids, they're struggling in this, that, or the other way. And my question, oh good, somebody else came. Let me admit them. There we go. We'll wait till she actually gets in the room.
What's works that way? We should get started.
Hi, Nancy. Perfect timing. We're just getting started. So
Sorry, I'm late. I just finished a late IEP.
no worries. So the idea of this is, it says expectations. What is the student expected to do? What to do to get their needs met, structure that is designed to keep them productive and meet like movement needs, connection needs, escape needs. So the idea here is the very first thing to think about is what what do you need them to do? Because what's happening is I come into a consult with a teacher in a classroom and they're like, this kid is just like running away and or dumping his desk or X, Y, and Z. And and I'm like, okay, well, an do we have an expectation for them? What kind of expectation are they being asked to do? And when we think about these expectations, I really want to think about this part, get their needs met. And when I think about get their needs met, I look at misbehavior to guide my quote needs assessment, right? So think about what they're doing in misbehavior. This one is often involved in a lot of the kids that I'm being called into. It's movement. They're up, they're out of their desk, they're moving around the classroom, they're out of the classroom, they're roaming campus. So I look at misbehavior as just a stack of information. And I think, okay, this kid has some movement needs. How about their connection needs? Are they escapers? They don't want anyone around, or when they're running around, are they trying to connect and talk to adults and talk to kids and get into classrooms and get into stuff, right? Um, so I just to take into consideration when you're looking at a kid who's having a struggle, instead of just having the framework of I need them to stop doing this thing, let's pause and ask ourselves what things are they doing and what needs could they be pointing to? Yeah. So I like to start with this expectations of, well, what should they be doing? Because it leads directly to this. I want to reward them for what they're supposed to be doing. Each time the student meets the expectation, I want them to be reinforced, right? So the first two things to think about here are what do I need them to do? And can I structure it in any way that supports this, that supports their needs? Can I structure it like I need them to be at their desk to do their work? Okay, great. So can you have them be in charge of passing out all the materials to every kid before they move to their desk? Now they're getting movement. Now they're getting interaction. Now they're in charge. I don't know if that's the magic for this kid or not, but I'm just trying to increase the amount of um, motivation based on what I'm seeing them do when they're quote misbehaving. Just using that information to drive my expectations. So it might just be I need them to be in the classroom. It might just mean I need them to not be disruptive so that other people can learn. So it could be really simple things like that. But I want the expectation to be clear because then we can narrow down what we're asking the kid to do. This doesn't have to even be a big expectation like, um, I need them to be at their desk doing their work. Well, let's back up a little bit. What's the misbehavior look like? If the misbehavior is so disruptive that nobody can learn, maybe you don't need them to be at their desk or doing their work. Maybe all you need them to be doing is not being so disruptive that other kids can't learn. And then we can move later down the line to getting them to do something productive as long as we can eliminate the big distraction in the room. So it's important for us to find like sometimes the question I ask myself is, what's the minimum I need out of this situation? That's a really good question to ask when you're looking for this expectations. And the reason, again, that I want to do this is because I need to get to this number 2 spot. I need to know that if I word it as if, let's say it was the distraction one, if the expectation is all you need to do is be in the classroom and not being too loud for other people to do their work, then every time that happens, I want a reinforcement to happen. I want some version, some structured response. I want to be able to come up to that kid and go, I see that you're making a choice that's not work, but you're following directions. You're not making a big ruckus. You're letting your peers learn. Here's your sticker. Here's your high five. Here's just me connecting with you and telling you what you're doing, and that's what I expect. Whatever that is, it needs to be some version of a structured response. So what I'm getting at is clear expectations need to match with a clear reinforcement. That's 1 and 2. Make sense? Okay. And you guys can always stop me and ask questions, especially if it's like, well, I have this situation and maybe how it would look in that situation. And we all have time to talk plenty because this isn't very long. It's literally 5 points of let's look at this, right? Number 3 is opt-outs. So I've nicknamed these things opt-outs. Literally, if you think behaviorally, this is escape. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to offer a functional opportunity. This is like functionally ruling out escape or not ruling out escape. And even attention-driven behaviors, most behaviors are pretty complex anyway, so you'll end up with some escape-driven and some attention-driven and some relationship-driven all mixed into one. So what I want to do is kind of like relieve some pressure for these kids. So the idea here is, what can I do if I don't want to do what's being asked? And if you think outside of behavioral terminology, I'm trying to look for self-regulation. I'm trying to grow their ability to self-regulate. So if I feel like what I'm being asked to do, partner with this kid, do this math work that I don't know how to do, or do anything today because I didn't get any sleep and my parents yelled at me and I feel like crap, whatever that is, how do I get it out? Because right now, the way I get it out is to use behavior. I just misbehave and then I get out of it. So what I want to do is offer an opt out. And I literally sell these to kids. I always tell them, like, look, you don't have to do what I ask you to do. You don't have to do what's on your schedule. You don't have to listen to any adults as long as you. And then again, like some of my generic ones where you could read at your desk, draw at your desk, or rest at your desk, but that's not the exhaustive list. You know, you could go to a beanbag, you could play with Legos in the corner, you could go out for a walk and come back, you could walk the track, you could, I don't care, whatever you guys think is logistically doable for you, tolerable at your school, within the kids' skill set and ability, that gives them a way to release demands without having to use their misbehavior. Good for so far? Okay. Number 4 is we need a prompting protocol. So what I like to do is dial in. If you see this, you're going to say this. And this is literally a script. And the script that I like to do the fill in the blanks for is, when I see you blank, then I can blank. And most often, what I say to a kid is, when I see you make one of your choices, then I can help you get your needs met. So that's usually my script, but it's just simply, when I see you blank, then I can blank. You can fill in those blanks if you need to do more specifics. If a kid doesn't know their choices, or if they need them repeated, if you need to use a visual when you say that to them. Sometimes I have choices that are written down and taped to their desk, and I'll point to the thing and be like, when you do one of your choices, and I'm over there pointing at their desk. So essentially, this is, you have the expectations written out, clear expectation. You have a reward system in place, and you have a way for them to opt out. And they're not making a choice that is following the expectation, and they're not making a choice to use an appropriate opt out. What do? You do this. You prompt. And you prompt once, but you need to have the same prompt every time. Part of the deal here is, if we don't script the prompt, then we risk multiple adults giving multiple different prompts, and that's not going to teach a kid. This is the line of expectation. This is where you either follow along and you get help, or you don't follow along and we don't help you, right? So it has to do with um, trying to release the entanglement into a problem behavior with a very clear verbal cue to the kids, so that over time they go, oh, when I hear that, I either can make the choice and get help, or I don't make the choice and I'm not getting what may end up being inadvertent reinforcement for negative behavior. And then finally, what do we do if it really doesn't work? So cut points. I just call them cut points. How do we know when we cut, right? So at what point do we remove the student from the environment in an attempt to support co-regulation? This is could be complex or simple. Sometimes you can just take a kid by the hand and go, okay, it's time to go outside and take your break or take your walk or whatever that is. If they're fighters or they drop to the ground or they don't want to move, then you're going to use a different skill set. This could be a version of classroom evacuation. What I like to do lately is we'll take the whole class out and we'll do a walk a lap. So what I've been teaching teachers that have challenging kids that are a pattern of challenge is we just teach the kids that we do a reset walk and we just go out the door. We do a simple loop around, and on the way back in, we don't let the kid come back in. We just close the door. That way we don't have to drag him out of the classroom. It's not a physical wrestling match. We simply block him for a moment at the door as we come back in, close the door. And then what do we do? Right? So there is like that protocol for what do we do? Who does it? So who's the one who stands and blocks the door and closes the door? And um, who do we call if they're outside and they're not allowed back in and all that stuff? So things to think about are these are just thought points, right? So what's the protocol for our minimum connection for during refusal? So this just has to do with um, how do we get the fewest amount of people involved in separating the kid from the peer group because it's creating havoc amongst peers. So again, one of the ideas here is um, we can pretty easily on a school campus deal with one escalation. Once we have an escalated child around peers and we start getting 2, 3, and 4 peers involved in the escalation, it gets like geometrically harder to deal with, right? So that's why we would consider how do we separate this peer from the other peers? So what's the protocol? This is literally like, how do we do this with the least amount of talking, the least amount of connection, and the least amount of people? We got to literally write it down, right? So one of the protocols could be we're going to do a reset lab. Who does it? The teacher does it. The teacher does a reset lab. They bring the whole class out and we do a lap around the playground or a lap around the hallway or whatever you have to do. This is the same thing. Where to go and what to do for regulation. So this would be, this has to do with this, opt-outs. So this would be, what's the kid supposed to do? Where is he supposed to go and what is he supposed to do for regulation? Because we need to be ready to reinforce right away. So even if we're at a cut point, even if we have to do a classroom evacuation walk lab, even if we follow this protocol, even if the teacher walks everybody out, and on the way in, this kid goes to the place that was designated and shuts down, but he's where he's supposed to be doing what he's supposed to be doing, that would prompt us back up to here. Reinforce. So now we had to evacuate the classroom. Everybody's coming back in. I look over. He's not trying to push his way in. I don't have to block him. He's sitting where he's supposed to be. He's using an opt-out. As the class went in, I would look over and be like, right on. I see you using an opt-out. Great choice. And then I would move back into class. Right? So this is why we need this, because at any point, we need to understand where that kid is on as far as the boundary line is of following protocol or not following protocol. Um, Again, how do we minimize the number of adults? So one of my things is no more than one adult and no closer than 15 feet. Best case scenario is people are watching through windows or watching on cameras, and that kid has no idea that the eyes are on if they're outside of the classroom, if they're wandering campus. And then finally, this one, which is another script. So what we're saying here is, how does the supervising adult, so let's say you're no closer than 15 feet away, this kid's wandering campus, and other adults start to come out of the woodworks, or a yard duty sees the kid, or a librarian comes out, or one of the ladies in the office or the guys in the office come out, and they want to engage. What are you doing? Why are you wandering around? Are you supposed to be here? My favorite question ever. Where are you supposed to be right now? That's what they always ask the kids, right? So what I want to get going is the supervising adult saying the script. We're honoring the reset by not looking at them, not talking to them, and not being near them. That's what no eyes, no mouth, no body means. It's just we're honoring the reset by not looking at them, not talking to them, and not being near them, right? So, like loosely written, obviously these are just bullet point notes, and it can get as complex as you want it to, but I want it to be really simple. I want you to think about, if you need a simple behavior plan, a place to start with kids, they need to know what you expect of them. They need to be reinforced for doing that thing. They need a way to opt out when they're overwhelmed. They need a prompting protocol so that they hear the same thing over and over again, so that they understand where the line for support and not support is. And you need to know when to pull the plug and say, look, we've tried the things we're going to try. I'm pulling the plug on trying, because if I keep trying, I'm going to make it worse. I'm going to turn my attention back to my class. I'm passing supervision on to A, B, or C person. And then that's what all this is about. Who does it? Who watches? Where do they watch from? How do we minimize? That's it. Those are the 5 things. If we start with those 5 things, I'm telling you, we'll address the majority of behavior that happens. I don't know if Nancy, I don't know. Hold on, I'm gonna stop the share real quick. I don't know if you have access to the chat before you showed up in the group. So I'm gonna grab the handout and put it in the chat again.
Okay. It looks like I'm chatting as a guest is what it says right now.
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter how you're chatting. I just didn't know. Usually if people sign on later, nothing's in
Oh,
their
thank
chat.
you. I got
So
it.
that's just the same document I was just showing you. It's just for you to have and explore after this. And essentially, I just wanted to get this out there, get this in front of people, give people a starting place. And obviously we can talk about stuff. We can talk about situations. I can answer questions, and we can have a good old time with the chat now. But I'm also available for at least for the Butte County folks. So if you are like trying to put this together and you have questions, just reach out. And Tara, you can always reach out to me. You already know that. I'd be glad to partner with you anytime on any of this stuff.
Yeah, for me, I'm now navigating working with a homeschool charter. And so when the students are receiving their special education services, they come into the office. And so it's not a typical classroom situation. So I'm looking at at the conversation around cut points, and just sort of in my brain thinking about the situation for our guy that's coming to mind the most. And he definitely wanders. He definitely wants to find what it is that he'd like to interact with. He does a lot of scripting, not very vocal verbal, ASD kiddo, 3rd grade this year. I'm just thinking about that. He's in an adult heavy environment, and I don't know how
Yeah.
many, I need to get back and observe. I don't know how many kids are in the environment, but he opens a door and goes to the next place. Like there's a grown up for sure, or there's
Right.
a line of doors. They have a sensory room. They have some tutoring space, and then it's speech and the other speech, and then the ed
Wow.
specialist, and then the school psych, and then the front office gal. Um, so that one around how to minimize the number of adults that are in the supervision mode, I think is
Yeah,
going to be
so
the
there could
trickiest
be
thing.
like if you look at it that way, it would be like, okay, what's the prompting for when they're
Hmm.
not using the quote appropriate opt-out and they're
Right.
not engaging, it
Yeah,
could
that
be a
makes sense.
visual cue for that kiddo that everybody
Mhm.
has, that when they see
That's
him
the key.
unannounced,
Okay.
the only interaction they get is dull, boring, matter of fact. And if he doesn't leave, they
Yeah.
just pretend he's invisible and they don't look at him and they don't, you know what I mean? So they would
Hmm.
understand. And then the trick is, how do they know when he's supposed to be there? So if you want to
Hmm.
teach independence, then he would have to be bringing something with him or able to
Right.
say something. But I would think, you know, like a
Yeah.
teacher given ticket or token that he could bring in, that they say, oh, he's got the blue token in his hand, he's supposed to be here. No
Yeah.
token, you just get the script
Yeah.
ready and you're out of here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I could build it into like the visual schedule. I think where he runs amok is he's an access kid, so he's really looking for access to what you got. And so
Yeah.
that's where we're seeing those bursts is like, so we're trying to do some incidental teaching, put it up high. But then he's like, well, I'll just book it over here and I'll go over to the front desk. And so controlling less for attention and more for access to
Yeah.
redirect back to, like you said, those opt-outs or those the expectations so that we can reward him.
And
Um,
even cranking up the value of an opt-out. So you typically,
There you
I
go.
I look at opt-outs from like mid to mild preferred.
Yeah,
But if I need to for kiddos,
that's
I
a good
will
point.
crank up the preference.
Yeah.
So, you know,
So he
you've
doesn't go
got,
looking for the other stuff
yeah,
because
so
his
you can
opt-out's got really
always
good stuff.
access the box of goodies for an
Yeah.
opt-out, and maybe they rotate if he's one of those kids where it's
Yeah,
never the
he is.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it could just be
And I bet just that novelty of the rotation alone, I mean, got to pack it with the staff, make sure that they're, rotating stuff in and out. But I bet that novelty alone of getting like a different bucket or bin of things to look through during an appropriate opt-out, that's
yeah,
super
and
helpful. Thank you.
even if you couldn't block certain areas, you
Hmm.
could offer opt-out boxes or
Yeah.
something in each area that he could
Yeah.
access, because then he could get appropriate, reinforcement.
Yeah.
And you're slowly
Totally.
shifting that behavior toward,
Yeah.
oh, you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
This is what an opt-out looks like.
Super helpful. No, yeah,
Yeah,
that's great because then he's not, and it's not kind of upping the ante and getting into someone's stuff because he didn't have any access anywhere else. It's giving lots of opportunities for access to the opt-outs. That
right,
way we're
for
not looking for
appropriate
something else.
access, right.
Okay.
And I'm always looking at how do I unvelcro us from power struggles?
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
any way I can build a structure that gets us out of power struggles and turns it into a passive experience, that's where I'm at.
that's great. Thank you. Super helpful.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. I just I went from bases to having a pretty easy class last year, and now I've got a couple more challenging students, and I was like, just hoping for a refresher on like, okay, what's the quick and dirty, which is basically is exactly what I was looking for is
Oh, right on.
dirty, how to identify the problem and quickly knock something out that I can put in place for them and just hand it off to my parent and be like, okay, Pierre, this is it. Run.
Yeah. And then when you get to that place where, wow, we're down a month later and we're kind of, we got some movement, but we're hit a plateau. We don't know where to go next. Now you have good information for an SST or an IEP team or any of that stuff where it's like, here's the protocol we've been using. The behavior went from here to now we're here, but we're stuck here. Where do we go next? It gives some functional basis for people to look at if they're looking at functionally what's happening. And you know
Yeah,
um
that's great.
yeah, the opt-outs are always really important because it really helps narrow down what escape can look like and if it needs to be supported with things like access or connection, or
Yeah.
like most of the kids that I'm dealing with don't have self-regulation skills. It's pretty rare. So it could be, you know, that you're limiting what co-regulation looks like. Yes, you're going to get one-on-one, but only if you do A, B, or C. There's your three choices for getting adult connection. Like the other day, I was in a CDS classroom. Kid was having a crisis. He came in. He's a little tiny tyke, right? And I just got him to stop long enough. I even picked him up and looked at him like, "Hey, dude, you don't have to squirm and be mad. Let's play." And he heard play and was like, "Huh?" But the choice for play is in the back at the table after your um, practice breaths because he's learning belly breathing. So you
Right.
have to get in the back, you have to be at the table, you have to do your belly breathing, and then I get to choose the three games, and you get to choose which one of those you want. And the games are all learning games. I'm not going to pull out like the best game or a video game on Chromebook or none of that. It's like,
Right.
identifying letters and phonic chunk games and some kind of counting game. And yeah, I'm going to make it fun and we're going to be silly and laugh and it's going to be easy and it's going to be super accessible skill level. But again, I can meet your need for co-regulation, but you're going to meet my need for structure. So I'm always working toward an end game, right? And I'm glad to let go and just be like, well, okay, cut point. Like it's not working. Regroup, regroup, regroup.
Can I ask you a more specific question?
Please.
So like I was an STC teacher at Neil Dow. I'm still at Neil Dow, but that's sort of dissolved and sort of going into this inclusion model. And I had it really dialed in as an STC teacher. Like we had the clear expectations. We had, within my classroom, we all knew exactly what we were doing. And now we're trying to like go into the gen ed and not be disruptive. And there's a student who just got on my caseload and got identified as ED, and we're collecting data and whatnot. But I really need to support him in the classroom without being disruptive. But
Yeah.
he is, and his thing is that he says inappropriate things, talks back to the teacher, and then if he doesn't get that reaction he wants, he'll up the ante and he'll say something racist. He'll say something about balls or be inappropriate,
Right.
and it doesn't have a lot of organization to it right now because like he really just got on my caseload. And so I sort of wanted to go back to basics to be like, what script do I use? What protocols can I tell
Yeah.
the teacher
Yeah.
to use? Because all she's doing is going like, get out. And she just sends him out, but it doesn't solve anything. And then all the students are turning against him instead of making him like a part of the classroom.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of bad practices being done, and I want
Mhm.
to support the new teacher because this is only her second year teaching, and I also want to do what's going to be best for the student and my staff. So,
Right.
and I've done the opt out. I did the opt out. I went to one of your trainings a few years ago, and that was amazing. Like that was a game changer. Being able to say like, you don't have to do this. I'm totally down with that. And then I gave them like reading, writing, or drawing, and then that would bring him back in, and it worked great. But I'm struggling now with being in the gen ed environment, how to make a
Mhm.
protocol work.
So one of the things that will help is this cut point thing
Okay.
in your particular situation, because what it does is it helps the teacher follow the program or this process with more fidelity because the teacher can see at what point do we still have him leave, right?
Okay.
So like I can do one, two, three, and four, knowing that if it gets bad enough, it's five and we won't
Okay.
keep them in. So that brings typically it brings the teacher's anxiety down because they know, okay, there's at least a cut point and they're not going to ask me to have this kid in here no matter what. So that's a win because it supports like you can now put way lower expectations on this kid and have the teacher reinforce those expectations
Okay.
more consistently because the teacher knows if it gets bad enough, they don't reinforce anymore, they bounce the kid.
Okay.
So it's still a trade-off. The bummer is if this kid's behavior is being functionally supported with the reactions of his peers,
Mm-hmm. It
then
is.
a majority of the work is going to be um, in the classroom, like a social skills kind of lessons, whole group around how we how we support each other when we go off the rails. And it goes for everybody. So then her expectations and her scripts for her classroom would look like, and if someone is saying inappropriate things or being loud, or you know what I mean, then
Yes.
our expectation as a class is, you know, that they're out of bounds. And the way we respect each other is we let each other take all the time and space we need to reset. And the way we do that is those rules right there. No eyes, no mouth, no body. We don't look at that peer. We don't talk to that peer, and we either move away. So if she's comfortable with people getting up and moving to like a different learning area in the classroom, that's great.
Hmm.
Or just pivot your body so that you're not facing toward them anymore. All right.
Okay.
So step one is pivot. Step two is, wow, this kid's in my space. I'm going to get up and go to the work table or the, you know, whatever that is.
Sure.
So
Okay.
that's because, you know, now we're addressing function of behavior. And we have to reduce the amount of peer interaction that students getting, at least the unpredictable kind of like, oh my God, don't say that. And you know, the big
Yeah.
responses in the class.
Sure.
He will get bored over time. It won't happen
Mm.
right away if he's not getting a response from the kids. And yes, extinction burst, you can guarantee he's going to try harder.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that's where you have the cut points. So if the cut points for me in that situation would be if he's invading personal space or touching kids or touching their stuff, then he's out. And then
Okay.
what do you do when he's out? So then there's still, you have to go, okay, if you're going to do a cut point and you're going to have him get out, then where does he go? What does
Right.
he do? Who handles it? And we have to, again, drive down the amount of feedback he's getting for problem behavior. So it would
Okay.
be boredom. Yes, you're out of class. Here's your places you can be. Here's the things you can do. Now they're going to be really low preference stuff. And if it has to be co-regulation with an adult because they can't self-regulate,
Hmm.
and it's when I see you make one of your choices, then I can help you get your needs met. And once he does one of those lower preferred activities, I can participate with that person in that activity. So it
Okay.
might be as simple as one of your options, if it's not working out in class, is to go shoot hoops. You come, you connect with me, you get the basketball, we shoot hoops. Great. Because over and over again, you know, if you look at the bigger, broader picture, if we go outside of this 5 point protocol thing,
Hmm.
if we look at like Dr. Perry's 6 core strengths, the
Okay.
only way kids end up getting to self-regulation is through co-regulation. And the only way they get co-regulation is to have a strong bond with a trusted adult. So all of these quote opt-outs of like, well, if they opt out and they get a basketball and they're shooting hoops with me, what are we doing? We're just letting them shoot hoops. No, we're not. We're creating a one-on-one strong bond that they can trust that adult and learn to co-regulate so that on their own they can self-regulate. And pretty
Okay.
soon shooting hoops with me turns into shooting hoops by yourself, turns into read, draw, rest in the class, but you can still hear what's going on.
Okay. Okay. But the big key then is that, like, I guess the hard part I've had is that I have to like lead that teacher to buy in and do this program. Just, or I'll just say, like, this is what needs to be done and help her develop that SEL whole group lesson about the expectations and protocol in the classroom.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, one of the key buy-in things is the cut points. The other way to do this
Mm.
is the only way we're going to know if this student can even be successful in your class long term is if we do this and we don't deviate from it. Otherwise, the data won't be accurate and he'll
Okay.
never leave. It doesn't matter how bad he gets. So
Okay.
I'll usually, if I have to, I'll play the card of if you want him out, you're going to have to do this really. The better you do this, the quicker we'll know if he belongs or not. Because at
Oh,
the back end, I know that if they do it right, it will help the kid. And we'll take, this plan, we'll adjust it 1 or 2 times and we'll find a sweet spot.
Okay. Nice.
But it is true. I mean, if the kid is gonna leave, if there is gonna be a placement question at the IEP, it's going to be based on data, and data has to be based on a plan done with fidelity. So you are setting yourself up the right way for, if this isn't the right program, how do we know that?
Perfect. Yeah, because the BIP wasn't, I didn't feel like it was clear enough. And I wanted to have something, yeah, this will help a lot with all the
Yeah,
fidelity.
and you can write BIPs right from this. That's another reason why I like the 5-point protocol, is because it takes care of some of the sections of the behavior
Mhm.
intervention plan. So if you do this stuff and you find things that start working, you can be like, oh, we can put that right in the section that talks about environmental structures. Oh, we can take that and put it right in the section for reactive strategies,
Okay.
Like cut points and reactive strategies are almost the exact same thing. Opt-outs,
Okay.
they go right in either a FERB, if we're looking at like escape as the function, then that could be an appropriate way to meet function. It can
Oh, I see.
also, opt-outs can also go up in the environmental structures place,
Okay.
because it says like, um, I like to put it in, what is the line? It says something like level of choice for student.
Oh,
I'll put it in there and I'll say the student has 100% of the time the student can choose to opt out if they want to. And I'll describe what those opt-outs look like.
oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's not, and then there's a difference between braked and opt-out. So for us to understand this, I want to make sure we know that opt-out is a self-regulation training tool, which
Okay.
means that kids get to choose when they need it, and they can choose it as many times as they want. They can do opt-outs for as long as they want, and they're never timed, and they're never um, there's never like an extra add-on for them to get to it. It's like, if they're in the middle of something and they're like, I'm opting out, saying something like, oh, just do this one last one because you're on a roll, that's not an opt-out.
Okay.
Now it's an earned break, and that's like a
Mm.
cause and effect thing, and it undermines the process of self-regulation, because now you're telling a kid, well, it's not self-regulation anymore. It's contingency-based reinforcement, because you have to do this thing in order to get that thing.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Okay.
So it changes the what it's supposed to be. So like,
Okay.
it's not bad to do contingency-based reinforcement, but just don't confuse it with opt-out. If they can opt out, they can opt out. That's on their terms. And you can
Okay.
offer it. You can always say to a kid, I see that you're frustrated. Remember, you can opt out if you don't want to do this. You could prompt them that way.
Oh, okay.
They don't take it, you don't force them to take it. Then you move to the cut points. You prompt and you pull back, right? So
Okay.
I would literally prompt and say, when I see you make one of your choices, I can help you. Then I would ignore that kid and let that kid walk around the classroom saying, ha ha, look at the penis that I drew on the paper. No, no, no. You know, look at you, N word, N word, da, da, da. And just have kids like, you don't exist, and just keep going. And it might
Okay.
be something like, if the class is following the no eyes, no mouth, no body, and it goes on for longer than 30 seconds, we hit a cut point. And then you just you don't even talk to the kid. You make a phone call, and the admin walks into the classroom and says, come with me. And they walk out of the classroom. And then the
Okay.
admin would follow the cut point protocol. So where do they go? What do they do? How does he get back?
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you.
That's how I would try to do it, because then it really reduces the amount of power that behavior has.
Okay.
The flip side of that is, if you involve admin, or if you involve yourself going to get them, or an aide going to get them, or any of that stuff, then there's going to be an imbalance of access for that person. So for that person, you're going to want to build in connection for positive behavior throughout the day. So if I'm the person that has to come get you, I'm also the person that's going to be seeking you out when you're not misbehaving, and being like, yes, I
Mm,
love you, seeing you connect with friends. Look at you, you know, communicating with people without using those words that you sometimes use, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, it's funny because I try to keep it simple. It's like 5-point protocol, and then I'm like, and then there's 50 layers to each
There is.
piece because there is. But yeah, again, I'm just trying to give people a starting point. If again, I find like a lot of people, they're just like, yeah, I tried this and I tried that and I tried that. Okay. But were you clear with the kid on what they were supposed to do? A lot of times people are like, no, I don't know. In my brain, it's if it's not written down, you didn't try anything. You can think it and you can put it all together, but if it's not written on a piece of paper, it can't be consistent. You can't communicate the same thing to multiple people and you're going to be wishy-washy. So write an expectation down. Doesn't mean you're not going to change it. Write it down. And then 2 days later, you're like, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to change it to this. Great. But then write it down and have it changed, right? And then reinforcement. So many people miss this reinforcement piece. Well, you have an expectation they're doing what they're doing. How do they know that they're doing what you expect them to do if you're not reinforcing? Make it tangible. Make it a sticker or a point or an M&M or a whatever for the sole purpose of getting you to tell them. Because the points don't matter. The M&M doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters, but it trains adults. If I have to do something, then it trains me to connect with you and say, hey, you're doing it right. That's all I need is for the adult to let the kid know they're on track. Everything else is about letting go, right? Opt out if you want to. That gets me out of the power struggle. My prompting protocol gets me out of the power struggle because I know I'm only going to say one thing one time. When I see you do this, then I'll do that. Then I'm done. Everything else is cut point after that, unless you're back in. If you're back in, then I should be reinforcing. So, it's really interesting because it's like the first two are, here's what you should do. I'm going to reinforce you for doing it. The number three is the pivot where it's like, and you have the power to not do anything if you don't want to. And then the last two are, gets me out of the power struggle. I'm going to say one thing and I'm done. If you cross this bigger line, I'm going to remove you from the environment so it doesn't ruin it for everybody else. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Super helpful. In addition to working homeschool, I'm homeschooling. And so I totally, Nancy, when you brought up your kid, I was like, now we're shifted to my kid. Where am I not doing this right? So that was
Yeah.
super helpful.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
when you said you're working with homeschooling, this would be really great for parents because it keeps it simple and
Yeah.
it's not that huge behavior plan thing. And no one is saying the words function of behavior to them. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you don't need that stuff.
Totally. And I love finding the morsels, and I don't know if this helps, Nancy and James at all, but I love finding the morsels of where they're already doing it. That's another kind of quick buy-in is like, you're doing this part, like you're rocking this
Yeah.
aspect. And then let's, suss it up and get, one or two other things and lock in step with it too.
Yeah. And this particular student is at grade level or above. He's really bright.
Yeah.
And so he can sort of check out and be a squirrel and then come back to it. But he's starting obviously to like miss some of his education. And then he really is feeding. There's a really unhealthy dynamic. There's a few kids who feed off each other. That geometric puzzle, 100%.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
gets messy. So I think it would be clear. I mean, not clear. It would be beneficial for that whole class to have those clear expectations. And it would take a weight off that teacher who's just like pulling her hair out.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
that can
thank you
be,
very much. I
yeah,
really
and
appreciate
that
it.
can be supported, school psychs can support in like what curriculum or what kind of skills, how do they do that talk with social skills in the classroom? And if the teacher is new, like if she's so new that she doesn't have resources, she could pull resources, but I would be cautious about pulling a canned program. I would think that all you could advise her, Nancy, all she needs to do
Mhm.
is teach kids how to not give or teach kids how to honor the reset for any of their peers that are outside of the boundaries.
I love that.
And that's it. It's just
Yeah.
don't look at them, don't talk to them, don't be near them. And that's how we honor them. And just call it honoring reset. We're honoring reset. So then if Jimmy's on a reset, hey, we're honoring Jimmy's on a reset. Let's honor Jimmy. Oh, now Sarah's on a reset also. Let's honor Jimmy and honor Sarah. How do we honor him, guys? We don't look at him, we don't talk to him, we don't get near him. Great. That's right. We give them as much time as they need.
Cool.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to
Thanks,
put something
guys.
together. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.